Hey everyone, happy 2023. Welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah, and today I have a quick video with my top 5 favorite books that I read in 2022. Some of them I do have video reviews on, some of them were prior to starting my YouTube channel, so I'm just gonna quickly go through those in the order that I read them and kind of explain what I loved about them so much. So starting with book number 1, which I read in January of 2022, and that is The Wolf and The Woodsman by Reid. What I kind of found about a lot of these books actually is that I enjoyed it way more than I was expecting to, so I think that's why it made the list, is because it was kind of an unexpected favorite. But this book, gosh, it's been a minute, so let's see if I can remember the plot. This is a story of a wolf girl. She's from a village of all women, I believe. And she is the only one without magic. So when the king requires a blood sacrifice, which happens regularly, they all pick her because she's not really worth anything. So when the woodsmen come to collect her for the blood sacrifice, she develops a bit of a relationship with one of them, and then they both end up working together to kind of save the kingdom from what's going on. So I really enjoyed this story. One of the things that I remember enjoying, typically I like a happy ending at the end of the book, where if there's any sort of romance, the characters end up together, right? And this book didn't necessarily have that happy ending. They ended up together for a time, but their stations were very different, so there was a possibility that they would have to, marry to produce an heir or something along those lines, and so it was like a happy ending for now. But for whatever reason, I really enjoyed that. Okay, up next on my list is a book that actually came out in 2022. I believe it was March, and that is the second Crescent City book, The House of Sky and Breath by Sara Maas. I'm a huge fan of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I've not read the Throne of Glass series yet, though I have the first 2 books on my bookshelf, but I did end up buying the first Crescent City book. Then when I found out the second one was coming out, I decided to read it quickly. Absolutely fell in love. It was one of those books where I couldn't focus during the day because I couldn't wait to get home and find out what was going on next. I believe I either teared up or actually cried at the end. Second book was just as fantastic as the first one, so there's kind of a lot to explain with this book. Essentially, the main character's name is Bryce. She is half human, half fae. And in the first book, she kind of solves this mystery about what happened to her best friend, and there were all these missing pieces and all of this stuff. And she befriends Hunt, who is like an angel. They work together to kind of solve this mystery. And so the second book, the mystery continues. They're trying to find this missing person. There's a lot of new characters introduced. We find a lot more out about the characters that we were introduced to in book 1. So I don't really think there's a ton that I can get into without really ruining the plot of this, but absolutely loved it. Hopeful for book 3 in the very near future. Up next, it doesn't seem fair if Holly Black didn't make this list in some capacity, because I know I've talked before about how much I love her writing and I love her characters in the worlds that she creates. So I did want to include a Holly Black book. Hard to pick, but I went with The Cruel Prince because, as I mentioned, I do have a review of this Folk of the Air series, which I can link if you are interested in hearing my thoughts on the entire series. But as a kid, I loved the Spiderwick Chronicles, which Holly Black wrote. I just fell in love with her writing style and the world she created for the Spiderwick Chronicles, and then found out that she wrote the Folk of the Air series. Of course, had to read them. So I purchased them a really long time ago. They've just been sitting on my shelf, and once again, I figured now's the time I need to read these. So I read these in the spring. So this is about twin girls, Jude and Taryn. Jude's kind of the main character. They're humans that are raised in fairyland, and it's just kind of about their interactions with the other fairies, particularly Prince Carden, who is the cruel prince listed in the title, and how they are navigating the politics of fairyland. So I won't add too much more because I do have a pretty detailed review of this book, but I really enjoyed the characters that she created in this series, and I'm so glad that I finally got to read these. Another book in the same universe is coming out in just a couple of days, and I can't wait to read it. Next up, surprisingly, not a fantasy book. I do want to kind of give a little bit of a warning before I share this next book, and I did also give the same warning when I talked about this in a wrap-up video previously. But my next pick for favorite books that I've read this year is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This is the story of a girl who was in an abusive relationship with a teacher at her school, and you get two perspectives in the story. One is her as like a 15 to 18-year-old girl. We get to see kind of her life through those years as she's experiencing this abuse, and then we get to see her perspective later when she's in her 30s to kind of see how her entire life has been impacted by this experience. And so I always feel weird talking about this book because it seems wrong to say that I enjoyed it, but I think that I was just really intrigued by it. I had a hard time putting it down because I think the author does a really good job of showing how Vanessa romanticized this relationship as it was happening and was kind of just brushing off these really horrible things because she thought that that's what mature people in relationships do. And then later on you can kind of see how her perspective is changing and how she realizes she's been very hurt by this relationship. And so I just appreciate the author's explanation of all of these events and how her perspective changes throughout the story. I would recommend this book. It's a heavy read, but I think it's worthwhile. But do keep in mind it is about some very difficult topics, and so if that is something that you want to avoid, then definitely stay away from this book. If you feel like you can handle those topics, some of the language is a bit strong for me too, then this might be a book you might be interested in as well. And the last book on my top 5 for 2022, Are You Surprised? The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. I raved about this in my review video, which I will link as well. This was a book where I forgot all of my adult responsibilities for like 3 days and just powered through. It was so good. So this is the story of Winnie Wednesday. They live in this area where each family is named after a day of the week, and they all have responsibilities because the forest has all of these nightmares that are repopulating every night, and so they have to eliminate them before they injure people. So Winnie Wednesday's family has been cast out from society. They kind of are living this very difficult life because her father betrayed them. And so this is her story of trying to get back into the good graces of society and how that impacts her and her family and her relationships and her friendships and all of that good stuff. So I absolutely loved this book. I am pretty certain there's going to be a second one, and I really hope that comes out soon because I don't know that I can wait, but highly recommend this one. So that's it for my top 5 books of 2022. I'd love to hear what your favorite books that you read in 2022 are as well. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.